Hello everyone, welcome in. How are you all today? Happy Sunday. Welcome back to the It Gets Better page. I am your host today. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Bee. I use they them pronouns. I am a soft-spoken, silly gaming content creator who mostly plays The Sims. But yeah, welcome in everyone. I hope you're doing well. I have chai, is that acceptable? You can always have water on the side of your chai. Water plus a more preferred beverage is always an option. Let me say hello to everyone. Welcome in. Natalia, hello. Sunberry, hello. Are you back from your... Sunberry, you were on a trip, right? Are you back, or are you just being a gremlin who's on a trip and saying hello anyways? Toasty, hello. Kat, welcome in. Callie, hello. Nicole, welcome. Kim, hello. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good time zone. I hope y'all are having a good weekend. So far, I'm excited to be able to start my Sunday with cozy little It Gets Better stream with y'all. If you don't know me, I was a ambassador last session, and I'm very happy to be back again for another 6 streams. I'm here until May along with the other ambassadors, and last session I did a lot of talking about my own personal experiences on the page, and this session I've been really excited to focus more on doing panels and bringing in some of my friends and fellow content creators who all have really interesting things to say and their own lived experiences that are different from mine, or sometimes the same. And so we start each session off with a little presentation on whatever we're talking about for the day, and then I bring the panelists on and they share, and I ask them questions and they share a bit about themselves. So that's what we're going to be doing today regarding chosen family. So I'm really excited to talk about chosen family today. Hi Danger, welcome in. Hi Rogue, welcome in. Is it Psy Stuff? I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but welcome in, friend. Howdy. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome. How's everybody's Sunday going so far? If you don't know me, sometimes we do a check-in question on my channel call where we ask, if your day was a color, what color would your day be and why? I would love to know how everybody's day is going so far. I would say my day... Maybe like a sky blue, like a soft, nice blue. A little bit sleepy. A little bit of the Sunday scaries, I would say. And just because we're moving soon, so we've got a lot on our to-do list all the time, thinking about all the moving stuff as well as our normal stuff. But also pretty content overall. Dark blue today, feeling a little sad and tired. Sending you lots of love, Rogue. I hope that this space can be a safe, little, comfortable space for y'all who are having not the bestest of days. But yeah. Alright, I'm going to kind of get into it while I'm listening to hear about how your day is, just because we only have 40 minutes together before our guests come on. Hi, is it Citronites? Let me know if I pronounced that correctly, but very happy to have you here, friend. Welcome in. A soft peachy pink. I finally kicked Insomnia's butt, so I'm a happy little egg. Let's go. I'm happy for you, friend. Alright, let's go over here. Oh, not there. Hee. I went to the wrong place first, but you saw nothing. Nothing, chat room. Hi, Sky. Welcome in, Sky. I hope you're doing good. Most of you know who I am, and I did kind of just introduce myself, but I didn't have this up quite yet. So that's good. Hi, Callie. Today is like a vibrant yellow. A little overstimulated, but I'm happy and having a good day. Good. Hopefully you can get the overstimmies under control. Pale yellow, relaxing, but I haven't really started doing anything yet. Ooh. A nice slow Sunday is good though. I like that for you. Hi Crab, welcome in everybody. All right. So you might be here before. I like to give a little background research on whatever topic we're talking about. I love using my time on the It Gets Better page as an excuse to do more queer research because I really don't get to do that now that I don't work in education very often. So we're going to get into that a little bit. And first things first, we're going to do the very bare basics. What is a chosen family? And so here's a quote that I found that seems to be quoted in a lot of the research. I don't think it's a perfect definition, to be honest, but I'm intrigued anyways to share. So it says, in the LGBTQ plus community, it's not uncommon to find a substitute family. I think that part is what kind of like throws me off, is like the substitute. I think chosen family is just like its own thing. It doesn't have to be a substitute for like quote unquote traditional families, but colloquially known as chosen family. The term refers to non-biological kinship bonds that many people choose because they need mutual support and love. So like in my personal experience, this topic is important to me because I have two parents who both struggle with addiction. And I won't get too deep into that today, but basically definitely means that I have a tumultuous relationship with both of my parents. And we'll talk about having a difficult relationship with parents being one of the most common reasons why someone in the queer community might seek out chosen family a little bit later. But that has been my experience. So I get a lot of my chosen family experiences online. As you all know, I curate an online community, which kind of means I get to curate my own little space of wonderfully sweet humans, many of whom who are here, who share similar lived experiences, values, that kind of thing, in a way that, myself and my biological family do not, unfortunately. So that's why I thought this would be fun to talk about, because I have my own personal experiences with how important chosen family can be, as well as I'm excited to have some of the guests talk about their experiences with chosen family. If at any point you want to share any of your own experiences with chosen family, I would love to hear about it, but you have no obligation. This is a very friendly to listening to, like podcast style. If you have things you need to do today or whatnot, you do not have to chat. You can just vibe. And Stitcher Knights, thank you for following the It Gets Better channel page. I appreciate that. So, what is a chosen family in more detail, right? Because that little kind of basic, vague definition really wasn't hitting it for me 100%. So I did some more research and I found some places where I think they describe it a little bit better. So I like this description, although again, not perfect, but I like this description I found. So it says, a chosen family consists of people we find to fulfill the roles of support, teaching, comfort, and kinship. This can look like almost anything, and in most cases is defined to be purposefully broad and encompassing. Chosen families are meant to pull people together and not shut them out through rigid definitions. Chosen family can be specific, such as having a mother, father, brother, cousin, sister, etc., and can be based off age, personalities, or relationships. And for some people, their chosen family is a family that they share residence with, they live together, and really do day-to-day activities together, but that's not always the case. Sometimes they're more vague, and you can have like a chosen family without spelling out every single person's role in the family, and they, as with all things queer, words do matter, and the point of a chosen family is to like not stifle individual members through these ideas of biological ties or comparisons to a nuclear biological family or labels, etc. So your idea of chosen family does not have to fit in the premise of what a family is supposed to look like, or society says a family is supposed to look like. Ultimately, you're supposed to be seeking, like, it's just to feel like a sense of belonging. And sometimes those labels can help and sometimes they don't. So it just kind of depends on the individual. So that's kind of the purpose. This sort of talks a little bit about why do queer people develop chosen families as well. And so I kind of shared a little bit about why I I have a chosen family and why chosen family is important to me, because I don't have that kind of support and comfort and things fully within my own family. Although we aren't no contact, I definitely just don't rely on them for those types of things. So they say the traditional family, in parentheses, quotations, relies on a number of things that aren't always applicable, or appealing to queer people. So, for example, for many people, marriage is a fundamental symbol of family, but marriage wasn't even legal for same-sex couples until 2015, and still isn't legal for all of our disabled friends. So it's still not legal in many parts of the world. And then another thing, reproduction is often a common tenet of like a traditional family, which is very complicated for queer people. Many queer people are not interested in having children, or they don't have access to the resources needed to be able to make that possible, even if they are interested in it. Hi, Juby, welcome in. I hope you're doing well, lovely. And the one that applies to me that I was kind of talking about earlier, relationships with people's parents look very different for a lot of queer people. Queer people, unfortunately, are often abandoned or victims of violence at the hands of their parents, estranged or distanced from their parents for different reasons. A lot of queer youth are kicked out of their homes. A lot of queer couples can't or don't want to have children. And a lot of queer adults don't talk to their families or their parents. So for a lot of these reasons, traditional family structures aren't conducive to folks feeling supported, loved as part of a community, so they seek it out for their own self. Hi internet, welcome in. Hi Elise, hello everybody, happy Sunday. So many lovely pals in chat. I hope you all are having a good day. I'm happy to have you all here. So with that being said, a lot of times chosen family is kind of born out of necessity. Many queer people can't turn to their biological families the way that other people can. And so you seek that safety net that a lot of other people rely on their parents for. You seek it from other people, and you kind of have like this opportunity, I guess, to rebuild a new, intentional, healthy family. Because like for me, my family structures that I grew up in, I knew for sure, I didn't know a whole lot about what I wanted out of family when I was younger, but I did know for sure I didn't want to repeat the things that I had seen in my family. I wanted to do anything but that. And so like trying my best to unlearn some of those patterns of behavior and how like people in my family treated one another, and learning healthier behaviors and like healthier ways to support one another, and learning what community care can actually mean within a chosen family was super important for me. So like, you know, chosen families often provide each other with financial assistance, somewhere to sleep, a place to vent, that support system, and that unconditional love that a lot of folks are seeking in the queer community that they might not get from their biological families. Hi Kim, welcome in. So yeah, that's kind of why a lot of people have chosen families. There are other reasons, and I do want to emphasize that chosen family is not specifically like a uniquely only queer experience. I think a lot more queer people use that language, are familiar with that language, etc. But it's not only a queer people thing. I think there's a lot of other marginalized communities who become estranged from their families for different reasons, and need to seek that support outside of their own biological family or the family that they were born into. Unlearning bad behaviors like hyper-independent behaviors from not feeling supported, woof. Yes. And learning like healthier attachments and trying to like how to process your own feelings and how to share those feelings with the people in your life. I am in my first long-term relationship, my first relationship where I live with my partner, a very queer relationship, and so there's a lot of unlearning the expectations of what that might look like, and really deciding for ourselves what we want family to feel like and look like, and how we want to interact with one another. And it involves taking a lot of accountability. It may not be your fault that you learned really unhealthy family structures, really unhealthy relational approaches to relationships, I guess you could say, but you are responsible for how you treat future people in your life and what work you put into unlearning those behaviors and learning better ways to go about doing it, making people in your life feel that love and support. It gets invented over and over again. I use that term before ever hearing anyone else use it. Yeah. Also, hi Erin, welcome in. Breaking the cycle, exactly. And not everyone has as equitable, like as consistent access to resources in breaking that cycle, and I want to acknowledge that. Not everyone, myself included right now, have access to therapy or education or things like that, and so everyone's going to be learning and working on that at their own pace when it comes to sort of breaking the harmful cycles that you might have learned from your family, but as long as you're putting effort towards it, I think that's what really matters, and you're holding yourself accountable when you mess it up, even though you learned that from someone else, and that part's not your fault, but the perpetuation of it onto other people, that part is yours to take accountability for. So yeah, yes. I think we touched on all of this. Also, hi Strike, welcome in. Hello friends. If you're just joining us, welcome. My name is V. I use they them pronouns. I am a queer and disabled variety content creator who mostly focuses on The Sims and other cozy sensory friendly games. We are chatting all things chosen family today. We did a little check-in in the beginning of the chat asking if your day was a color, what color would your day be and why. So if you'd like to share, you're more than welcome, but if you also just want to listen in for today, that is totally fine. So this other article that I found, I also thought had some really interesting pieces to the puzzle as to why chosen family might be important. And so I'm going to read a little bit of this and share some of my thoughts from this as well. Oh, you're good, music. We are not on for the panel for 25 minutes, so get your coffee, take your time. You are all good. I'm just giving everybody a little precursor, a little background research. So this one says, there's a well-known saying that you don't choose your family, and it is true. You don't choose who you're related to by blood. So no matter how much you differ personality-wise, value-wise, etc., that's just kind of like the family that you're stuck with, so to speak. If you're really lucky, then you might be born into a loving, accepting, supportive family who loves you for who you are. But for a lot of queer folks, unfortunately, that's not always the case. And just because you're related to someone by blood does not mean that that person necessarily has your best interests at heart. And they won't always understand your experiences or your point of views. And that's another reason why chosen families tend to exist. People who need that emotional support seek out people that they can trust and they can rely on. And it's becoming more and more common that younger generations, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, are a lot more lenient with how we define family. A lot of us consider valuable friendships, friends to be part of our family, and romantic partners to be part of our family in a way, and not just blood relatives. And a lot of people really want that freedom to express themselves. I know myself, and a lot of you all probably can relate to being born into families or being adopted into families where you didn't feel like you could fully be yourself, and that being with a chosen family might be the first time you can really start exploring what that authentic version of yourself looks like. Which can be jarring, but it can also be a really freeing experience. I know for myself, it's been both of those things. You know, there's a lot of grief sometimes associated with letting go of your vision for what you thought you were going to have with your biological family or your adopted family or whatever family you were born into or found yourself in. There's a lot of grieving that can happen if you had an idea of what you wanted that to look like and it didn't really manifest that way. But there's a ton of joy and freedom involved with finding your own space where you can really be yourself as well. So it's kind of like this double-edged sword kind of thing. Another thing that people, or that my research mentioned that I also thought was important to share, I guess, was that not everybody who leans into chosen family or has chosen family was necessarily kicked from their family, or their family doesn't want to talk to them, or there's no contact with their family. That's an experience that a lot of people have in the queer community that's super valid, but also, yeah, family of origin is a good phrasing too, Nicole. That's why I was saying, like, family you're born into, or family you're adopted into, or like whatever family you found yourself in that wasn't necessarily by choice. Any family that wasn't by choice is what I mean when I say family of origin, or the family you were born or adopted into, or the family you found yourself in. What was I saying? Going no contact or being kicked out, and like that being why you have to choose like your own set of family is really common, but not the only experience. So like for myself, I still have minimal contact with my family, and I know that some others in my community, when we've talked about family, also feel similarly. They have the people who were assigned to you to be your family, however that happened exactly. The family you were presented without choice, perhaps. Usually as a kid. But yeah, sometimes people go through lived experiences of repeated emotional hurt from their family for whatever reason. So mine was that my parents were addicts. Bump the music down a smidge. I can do that. Sometimes different songs are up or down. But yeah, I put it down a little bit. I have this tendency to accidentally have the music too quiet. So I err on the side of bumping it up a little bit, but I appreciate you letting me know. So sometimes when you have that kind of like repeated emotional hurt from your family of origin, you seek out a more joyful experience of family through chosen family. And related to more joyful experience of it, one really nice thing about chosen family is that it lets queer folks imagine and build families that are more aligned with their needs and the things that bring them joy and make them happy, which is a really special part about the whole experience. Last one was a bit loud, but the things... Yeah, no, you're good, Kat. You're good. Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate it. I want you all to be able to hear me well, and that everything sounds good volume, so thank you. Oh, and I should have clicked to this page, but we kind of touched on this. Like, people have varying degrees of relationships or contact with their family of origin, and some folks can't fully be out in terms of their queerness, with their family of origin, so they seek that acceptance and freedom of expression from another family, if that makes any sense at all. Ba-da-da-ba-ba. Let me see. What else was I thinking about when it comes to this topic today? A lot of these articles have some of the similar thought processes. So, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, this was kind of what we were talking about earlier, but I think it's a good example of how chosen family is not always only an LGBTQ experience. So this says, like, it's also good to remember that the concept of chosen or found family is not strictly for one community or another. For example, people of color used to be violently separated from their families, and thus a lot of families of choice were created as a result. So this can be true for any marginalized community or people who are ostracized from society who come together to uphold each other in ways that they were missing in their personal lives. It's all ultimately about taking care of one another during difficult times, and being there for each other in good times, and just being a presence for each other at all times, and through all the things that you go through in life. Just having that sense of community is important. Chosen family has become big for me as a single person, as I have not built my own family unit. Yes, exactly, because that's where I kind of started building my own chosen family initially. Was I was originally, when I first started seeking like that online community support, that chosen family, it was the beginning of the pandemic, and I had just moved in by myself for the first time in an apartment alone, and I was not in any relationship, and I didn't have a lot of friends. I felt quite lonely, and because the pandemic was starting and I was chronically ill and immunocompromised, I couldn't just try to seek out that family by like looking for queer groups or anything in person, because I couldn't like go out and about to those events. Still can't really. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I can find people like me online, and I can get that sense of community and support, play some games with some people, whatever. And I really had no idea at that point how important it would become to me in my life to have online chosen family. I'm still working on building, I feel like, an in-person chosen family type of thing. Obviously, I have my most wonderful partner, Toast, now, who went from an online chosen family to an in-person chosen family. But, you know, we both have talked a lot about wanting to expand upon that. And so I'm excited. We're moving soon to the northeast part of the country, New England area, and we have a lot of friends who live there. So I'm excited to be able to like kind of build upon online relationships and slowly let those turn into in-person connections as well. But yes, chosen family can be super important for those of us who are single and don't have like our own family unit that we've built yet for ourselves. Eli, thank you for the follow to the It Gets Better page. Welcome in. Happy Sunday, Papa. Welcome in. I hope you're doing well. I hope you are doing good. Welcome. This is finding chosen family. The composition of this group is a choice that you have. It's the proactive seeking of people that support, bond, and love. And I really liked this quote because this idea of it being proactive, I think, is an underestimated important concept, in that, for the most part, some people will get really lucky, but I feel like for the most part, a really like valuable thing to realize potentially for some people is that your chosen family will often not just fall into your lap. Social anxiety is so valid. but you will have to probably push yourself outside of your comfort zone potentially to seek out and find people like you who share your values, who share your interests, who might be a good fit for your chosen family. It can be very hard finding in-person chosen family with the pandemic the way that it is. It can for sure. It involves a lot of boundary setting. That was a conversation I was having with one of my friends who is coming to visit us in a couple of weeks. She's great, nothing negative in that regard, but we talked about this in my last It Gets Better session because we were talking about the intersection of disability and queerness, specifically during the pandemic, but treating pandemic safety like you would with any other safety negotiation is really important, and the idea of consensual interactions and getting to choose what you are not comfortable with is a huge part of seeking out that chosen family and finding people who are willing to meet you where you're at, even during like the panini time. So things like, do you need COVID testing before you interact to feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable being, do you want masking, and in what circumstances? And like all that kind of stuff is important conversations to have with people. And if they are really your chosen family, if they're the right people for you, then they will be willing to have those conversations and be willing to meet you where you're at with what makes you feel comfortable and safe, whether that's online gathering or masks or testing or all of that kind of stuff. Chosen family, still like other relationships, you have to put in time and effort to support one another, and also being mindful of boundaries and respectful of theirs as well as yours. Exactly. Great minds think alike, Beppo. Precisely that. And this was a little bit about how people find chosen families, and I think there's definitely more options out there than just this, but it's a couple of potential helpful strategies to try. So obviously some people find their chosen family through partners or dating or queer platonic relationships, through things like dating apps or mutual friends or things like that. Whether that's you get together and you start kind of building your own family, whether that's with like your pets or kids, or if you're polyamorous, maybe other partners. Or sometimes what happens is if your partner's family is more accepting of you in a more wholehearted, authentic way, sometimes people start integrating into their partner's family, and that partner's family kind of becomes their chosen family, etc. If you don't have a partner or you're not interested in dating in any capacity, whether that's a queer platonic relationship or anything of the otherwise, sometimes people will seek out things like clubs, queer support groups, queer group therapy, local LGBTQ plus organizations or advocacy groups. There's like really common advice sometimes given that like if you don't have sorry, words are hard. If you don't have like that sense of chosen family or friends, one of the things that's often recommended is to go to a place that you think holds your values, or that shares your interest, and go there on a regular basis if you're able to, whether that's online. So say you find a Twitch stream community or some other community online, and you go there regularly enough to start building those relationships, or in person, right? Maybe you're really passionate about, sustainability, and so you regularly go to like a community garden every month, or you regularly go to your local farmers market once a month or every week, or whatever you can manage. more you start to like frequent queer places or places that have people with shared community values to you, the more likely you're going to start making some friends there, and potentially finding that chosen family that you're looking for. And then, of course, don't count out online spaces. I have found a majority of my close friends and chosen family online, especially during the pandemic, especially if you're disabled and that's what you're searching for. Online is a great place to seek that out so that you feel safe and comfortable. Obviously, online safety is also its whole own ball game. So be, smart about what information you share with people online and things like that. But it can also be a really great place to start. I feel like getting some way to spend a lot of time around people helps you feel people out you can really be yourself and have healthy boundaries with. Exactly. And if you know you're searching for a chosen family, or some really good close friendships type of thing, making sure you're having those important conversations early so you don't feel burned later is really good. Like, asking them those questions about what they value in terms of, political values, in terms of the pandemic, in terms of all of those types of things, and asking them questions about their interests and their future goals and aspirations. And what does family look like to them? Making sure that y'all's alignment of what chosen family, your ideas of what chosen family could look like align well. All of those types of conversations. I know for a lot of people who grew up people pleasers or not having their needs met, and not having their boundaries respected, you're using a new muscle. It's a lot of learning, because maybe you didn't have those conversations with your family of origin because those were families you were just popped into and expected to deal with, I guess is the best way that I could phrase it. So it's going to take time and practice, but it's definitely a worthy endeavor, to take some time to like really get to know people before you decide that they're someone you want in your regular circle and who you want to be able to be vulnerable with. I mean, vulnerability is going to be a huge part of that chosen family, right? If you hold everything super tight, and you have a lot of walls up, obviously you're still deserving and worthy of love and support and kindness, but eventually, it can take time, but eventually being willing to be brave and vulnerable with the people that you want to build this chosen family with, is going to be really important in terms of how close you can really get with someone and how authentically yourself you can really be in that space. So yeah, those are the types of things that you could do to maybe seek out some chosen family if that's something that you want but you don't have yet. Is some suggestions. Elise says, feeling safe enough to speak up and say when you don't feel safe in the moment is a huge breakthrough. It has to be safe to say I feel unsafe, which is so interesting, but true. You have to care enough about that relationship that you want to maintain it. I say this a lot when it comes to marginalized communities giving feedback, right? So something that, and then this can apply to people you're considering having be a part of your chosen family too, I think, is that if someone didn't care about you, they wouldn't tell you that you've hurt them. If someone is coming to you saying, hey, this thing that you said, that made me feel a little uncomfortable, that made me feel a little unsafe, if they're coming to you and saying, that language that you use, that was problematic, that was hurtful. If they didn't care about you, they wouldn't do that. They tell you because they think that there's a chance, and they're probably anxious about it, in my opinion, like in my lived experience. They tell you because they think there's a chance that you're willing to learn and you're willing to meet them where they're at, and that you're willing to hold yourself accountable. self-accountability. And they want to be able to continue having a relationship with you, or they want you to be able to continue to be a part of their space. But if you continue to hurt them, they can't let you continue to be a part of their space. So they have to tell you so that you can change your actions and not continue to cause them harm. And so, like, trying not to be defensive and trying to be accountable when someone tells you that something that you've done has hurt them is going to be a huge part of creating a successful, like, chosen family structure. Because it's not just like this picture perfect, right? It's not. I feel like that's so important to say. It's not this picture like, I chose my family, so it's perfect. We never get into tiffs. Everything's just like happy-go-lucky all the time. It doesn't look like that. It is actually incredibly hard. Anybody who has a chosen family, I bet, would tell you, at least in my experience, it's actually incredibly hard, because you're genuinely being honest about who you are, they're being honest about who they are, and that becomes messy. Exactly, Eva. Just that. It's being a human is messy. We are complex, imperfect, traumatized. Like, so often people who choose chosen family are marginalized humans who've gone through a lot. So we have a lot of trauma to work through, and we don't always have access to tools and resources to do that. So we're raw dogging it. And that's not easy, and it requires people in our lives who are really willing to get down and dirty with us as we do that work, as we work through, our boundaries, needs, support system, etc. It's hard. It's so hard. It requires work, and even when you're trying, it can be easy to kind of take one another for granted, even when you're close. Exactly. It requires a lot of consistent effort on everybody's part. And yeah, you can have falling out with your chosen families. We're just winging it. Yeah, okay. Winging it might be a better way to say than raw dogging it, okay? I get it. Toasty, thank you for the hydration reminder. Yeah, it's not easy. It's hard work. It takes time. It takes effort. But it is very worth it in the end, in my humble opinion. All right, chat room. That's pretty much it, I think. Yes, this is my deets. If any of you want to follow me on any other social media platforms, including Twitch, you're more than welcome to. And if you have any questions or follow-ups, this is my email address as well. We are going to go on a BRB screen. I'm gonna get all of our guests settled in. I gotta get all their cameras hooked up and stuff, which sometimes comes with a little technical difficulties, so I appreciate your patience. And we are going to have a little chat with some other wonderful humans, and they're going to share a little bit about their lived experiences with chosen family, because I think it's super important to see that everybody's experience with it is different and unique, and yours will be too. So I'm excited to see what they have to say. So just give us a few minutes to get them all settled in, and I will BRB. Burba da burba. Hello, everybody. Let us know if the tech is being good, if it's being spicy. I'll do my best to fix it. I can't make any promises, but I think we have everybody figured out both in audio and captions, which is great. So I am back with some wonderful humans. I'm going to, yes, hype for Tech Toast. Bless. We were literally just talking about how many streamers are like tech inept and how I survive by asking Toast. But I'm joined by some really wonderful humans who do some really cool things on the interwebs and off, so I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. We'll start with Mick, if you're okay with it, just to go in order, and then we'll get into our chats today about Chosen Family.
Oh yeah, my name is Mick. I am a variety streamer. I play platformers and farming sims. I also do pottery and music.
Awesome. I turned them up as well. I think they were a bit quiet, but if that was too much, let me know. I turned everybody up. I think they were all a bit quiet. Okay, perfect. Internet, if you want to go, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, I'm Thanks Internet, or you can call me Internet. I use she, they pronouns, and I am a queer Canadian content creator who kind of does everything. So, yeah, variety streamer. I host a talk show on Mondays about the internet, gaming, tech, ethics in tech, streaming, anything related to the internet and technology. And yeah, I've done everything from Furby cosplay to road trip streams to blanket fort streams. So I like to switch it up. So yeah, also I have big time ADHD, so there's that too.
I like my favorite, I think one of my favorites of all of your different fascinating ideas for streams was when you did a picnic stream outside with your whole PC setup.
See, my partner is also the tech person, so he set that PC up out there. I couldn't do that myself. No way.
Toasty, at least fun. I'm not asking you to set up PC setups outside.
So true.
All right. Music, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Music. Most people just call me Mickey. I'm a trans, queer, Chinese full-time content creator here on the internet, specializing mostly in looter shooters, though I do dabble in puzzle games when I'm not tempted to throw my controller out a window at them. But I spend a lot of my time playing like Fortnite, Apex, all the big names and shooters and things like that. Really into Valorant right now. It's probably my new hyperfixation. I tracked about 700 hours in 2 months, if that tells you how much I play. But otherwise, I just make a lot of memes on the internet and do a lot of stuff about like trans rights. I talk about trans rights a lot on my Twitter. That's where I spend most of my time is Twitter, to be honest.
Yes. Also, we should play Valorant together.
We should. 100%.
All right, Eva, you go for it.
Hello, everyone. My name's Eva, otherwise known as Black Beauty Forever on Twitch. I stream a lot of cozy games as well as Fortnite. Well, I try to play Fortnite. My computer does not enjoy me playing Fortnite anymore on stream. But I typically focus on a lot of topics about being pansexual as a Black creator in mainly white spaces, and also talking about my experience in America, in the queer community, in the Black community as a whole, and how that has shaped where I am today and who I am as a person today. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you all for being here, by the way. I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedules to hang out with us. We're getting some shout outs in the chat for all of these cool humans who do cool things on the interwebs, so make sure to show them some love. If you like to watch Twitch streams, if you want more like safe spaces to hang out in, spaces to have these important conversations, these are all wonderful humans who do, in my opinion, a great job at doing all of that, as well as just having vibey, funny, humorous, good queer joy happening as well. So yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit. We only have about an hour, so and we have 4 wonderful humans here, so I don't know how deep we're gonna be able to get, but we will give it our best go. Good, the bot is less angry now and the shout outs are working. So yeah, I talked a lot about my personal experience, so I probably won't pipe in a whole lot, and I'm not going to force you all. Like, if you all don't have a lot to say about a certain question, there's no pressure to answer every single question. We're just going to kind of popcorn it. So if I ask a question and you feel like you have an answer, feel free to pop in. But we're gonna talk a little bit about, just to start, because folks don't really necessarily know who you are, kind of what queer identities you hold, what, you know, labels or lack thereof feel good for you, and kind of, well, let's start there, and then we'll talk a little bit about like what your experience with non-chosen family and chosen family has been, broadly, so folks can kind of just get a taste of who you are and where you're kind of coming from with your stories, experiences, etc. So first things first, like what queer identities feel good for you and resonate with you all. And anyone, y'all could, I know the popcorn thing is like more authentic but also nerve-wracking, so you know, we'll do our best to just pop in and pop out how it makes sense.
I can start.
Go ahead, Eva.
Yeah, so like I said before, I identify as pansexual. I used to feel more comfortable identifying as bisexual for the longest time, because I hadn't fully realized what that meant to me and how that translates into how I actually feel about people and the people that I've loved in the past and who I love now, and who I will probably love in the future. So that has always resonated with me more personally. And I don't know, it has always been a huge part of my life, but as I've delved more into what my identity means, and how that translates, I also recognize what's the word? How that is viewed in the Black community as a whole as well. Because a lot of people know what bisexuality is, but they don't really understand what pansexuality is, and why that's helpful for me to identify as one versus the other. And so it's always been really interesting to have that conversation with people who are in BIPOC communities, because they just don't know, and that's totally okay. And I hope that through conversations like this, we can open the floodgates for people to just really delve in and think about why people identify the way that they do, and why it's so important that we feel comfortable enough to open the floodgates for people to understand us better and to overall help communities as a whole, and also like getting rid of generational trauma and like a bunch of other stuff that comes with that. So, you
know. So I mostly just use queer as an overarching label because to me it's less complicated in the way that when you just say that you're queer, people kind of take it at face value. And because I'm demisexual and aromantic and all these other things, like, you know, the words that not a lot of people hear in the media constantly and things like that, I find myself having to answer more and more questions if I say that than if I were to just say, oh, I'm queer. So I've put myself kind of in the bigger box when I say, oh, I'm just trans and queer, in a way to help ease myself into better conversations with people about what being demi and what being ace are, and not have to just throw myself out there right away, leading in with the conversation of, oh, well, this is what I am directly. So it leads, I think, to more healthy conversations about what ace and demi are, instead of people just going, well, that's just a really stupid word. Like, that's not how it's not simple enough to just say that. But if I notice if I say queer, people are like, okay, but if you're queer, what kind of queer? Like, let's get you out of that box a little bit more. But I think opening with the word queer a lot of times helps destigmatize the way that people see it. And it's not as much of like oh, that's such a slur and it's such a bad word to use. Like, I think in a sense, using just queer as a blanket helps open better discussions about being ace and demi and things like that. And it leads to a healthier space as far as conversation with day-to-day people. when I'm talking to other content creators that I know are queer, I'll just lead with, yeah, I'm Demi and Ace and Polly and things like that. But I've noticed in the non-queer spaces, in the IRL spaces that I lead, because I live in a very red state, that if I just say queer, most people will just take it at face value of that and go, oh, okay, cool, moving on with the conversation. But I think overall that as a banner term just helps fit who I am more, because I am very much a banner term of all of the things that I am. I'm an encompassment of everything that I lead into, and not just each individual segment.
Yeah, I'm very similar to, like, I typically will just say that I'm queer. I feel more comfortable with that term. When I first came out, it was very similar, actually. I was bi. Like, that's what that was the more commonly known term, at least for me. And then I did more research and learned more and met more queer people and realized that, like, I actually identify more as pansexual. And then I was bi/pan for a long time, and I think that's kind of where I sit most comfortably. I also identify as non-binary, but genuinely, like, queer feels best. And I know a lot of people who identify that way too,
Yeah.
Also, sorry, friends, that the captions sometimes get behind and a little bit frozen. A lot of us talk quite quickly, and so then they zoom and then they get stuck and take a couple seconds to sort themselves out. So Pixel Chat is the best in the industry for what we're trying to do, but it is certainly not perfect. So I hope it can provide some accessibility, but I apologize that it's not a little bit better. I would love for it to be a little bit better.
I think my captions, broke again.
Oh,
so.
Here, I'll get you another one. No worries.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Pixel Chat is really bullying you today, Mick.
It doesn't
Pixel
like
Chat, get it together, please.
Here you go, love.
It also doesn't help that I talk like 10 miles an hour, and Pixel Chat doesn't like fast-moving speech.
I feel like a lot of us do, so it's fair.
Yeah, I'm gay, I walk fast, I talk fast. Those things I do are fast.
Same.
Exactly.
Literally same.
All right, let's see if those work for you.
All right.
Yes,
so it looks like it's working. Okay. I guess in time for me to speak about my identities. Yeah, I like to call myself a triple A battery because I am asexual, aromantic, and agender. I don't know. I personally like using, I guess, very descriptive terms because I don't like like when people ask me like what flavor of whatever it is you are. But I've been ace for I've known that I've been ace for a long time, about 20 or so ish years. Like, it's one of my longest standing identities aside from being black, which is something that I was born with. Like, I can't really change that one. But yeah, and then agender is something that I came into a couple of years ago, and so is aromanticism, which I'm specifically quaromantic, which is on the aromantic spectrum. I'm also polyam, which is very hard to explain to your parents when they're very conservative Christian people.
Yeah.
Yeah, which they thought I would grow out of being asexual, but that never happened. Like, I'm still asexual, and they came to accept that. And it was actually because of like the found family that or chosen family that I came across, agender. Like, if it wasn't for the people that I met along my queer journey, like I would probably still, think that I was the way that everyone else thought that I was. So
Well, Awesome. And I guess since I didn't say this earlier, I will also say, I kind of like Mick. Also, I do tend to use more specific labels most of the time, unless I feel uncomfortable or too tired to do any education. In which case, I might sometimes use something like queer, but I'll do identify as non-binary, as queer, as a lesbian, as polyamorous, all the good things. Also ace as well. Sometimes I don't feel like listing all of those out if it's not necessary, so then I'll just say queer. But if it's in a valuable part of the conversation, then I'll usually be more specific, but it just kind of depends on the context. So those are kind of some of the spaces that I'm coming from as well, as we kind of tackle this. So and then the next kind of thing that I was thinking would be helpful for people to know is kind of what, to the extent that you're comfortable sharing, because I know that sometimes the reason that people seek out chosen family is hard lived experiences. What was your experience with family or lack thereof before you discovered that chosen family was an option? Because I know, at least for myself, that like when you're young, you don't always know that that's like a thing that you can seek out, like support from people outside of your family of origin.
So I don't mind starting this one. I was adopted when I was 3 years old into a decent family. I wouldn't call them terrible, but I did realize later on in my adulthood, I say at 26, that I had been very isolated from my own culture because I was raised by white people in very white cities, surrounded mostly by white folks, and a lot of what drove me to find, my current found family, my chosen family, was the fact that I felt outside of my own culture. I'd look at the other, Asian kids at my colleges and see that they had these, really in-depth relationships with their family, and because my family wasn't the closest, and I was the outside member as the only non-born child in that family, a lot of times it felt like I was always watching from the outside, looking in at other people's lives in a lot of ways. So my found family that I got through college and through, content creation and things like that really helped me feel that sense of community and like togetherness that I think a lot of Asian cultures have with their family roots and things like that. And it's really helped to drive me back towards like my heritage and my culture there. And it's been really nice to have more of a connection to people than just these are the people that I grew up with and spend time with because of the fact that we were born together, not anything else.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was similar to Mick, actually, what they were talking about in terms of being raised in a pretty strict conservative Christian family. For me, with my non-chosen family, boundaries weren't really a thing, like not a very valued thing, and communication was there, but not when it was inconvenient for people. It was there sometimes, but there needed to be more. So that was one thing I found really hard about my non-chosen family. So it wasn't terrible. Like I love my non-chosen family, and they are, I mean, to this day we keep in touch, but there were a lot of things that I just really needed in terms of respect for boundaries and open communication and expressing where you can feelings and emotions, and that wasn't there, right? So
yeah, I guess I can go next. My relationship with my immediate family is what I would consider fairly good in the spectrum of people who have relationships with their family versus people who don't. Growing up, I was in a very conservative Christian family, but that mainly stemmed from this idea. My dad married my mom, who was adopted, and by a white family, and they were very conservative and Christian. So my dad kind of felt like he needed to go that way to appease them. So it wasn't necessarily that they wanted our household to be like that. That's just what they thought they had to do to survive within the dynamic that they were trying to force themselves in when it came to family. So that kind of translated into my life, obviously, because I was a child growing up. So like it was very hard for me to understand that like I didn't owe these people anything for a really long time. My parents are very open and understanding. My mom more so than my dad. He's much older than my mother and has a lot of hard times grappling with certain things, like my brother being autistic and how that translates into our family life. And my brother is also pansexual, but he's autistic and doesn't necessarily feel comfortable having those conversations with me on a regular basis. So every once in a while we do have the conversation, but it's not something that we like really dive into often. And my mom is very attentive with trying to look up things and like be more understanding. Like she tries very hard, but she also grew up in a family that has no idea about that type of stuff and will never have any idea about that type of stuff. And so she's still learning as well. But I really started to look for chosen family really because there was things that I knew that maybe I could bring up, but didn't really know how they would be received in a way that was constructive. My dad had a tendency to want to be open and honest with me, but would often choose the wrong times to be open, honest with me, like telling me things that are kind of traumatic at like 6 a.m. before I'm about to go to school type scenarios. So like we didn't have that like real understanding of how to communicate with each other. We've gotten better through the years, but even now it's still difficult. And so I was really seeking people who were like, hey, like, are you in a space where we can talk about this? Like, those were the moments that I was like really searching for growing up. And even now as an adult, that I really search for is like people who are like, you know, like, I want you to be comfortable within yourself to not only open up to me, but I want you to also understand that if there's moments where I don't want to talk about something, we don't have to talk about it. And that's totally fine. And my biggest thing is like, I want to be comfortable with you in silence. Like, if you're having a bad day and you don't feel like getting into it, let me just sit beside you and hang out. Like, let's have that like as like a chosen family moment, you know? Like, I don't need you to be constantly talking and telling me what's happening for us to be close and have an understanding and enjoy each other's time. And so like that's really what like I focus on when it comes to chosen family, because it's like so instrumentally important. And like my parents, I grew up with like my parents not being like financially stable and all these things were happening, and like, you know, so it was really hard for them to focus on the emotional side and all of that stuff that I needed like to my core. And which is no fault of their own. Like, you know, they tried their best, but they had to focus on where are we living, how are we making money, where's the food coming from. So like I get it, but like at the end of the day, like I needed more. So I did start like being at home less and like trying to hang out with friends more and having more sleepovers and doing all that stuff, because that's just where I felt more comfortable and felt like I could be myself, and I wasn't like walking on eggshells and worrying about the money because I was like too intuitive to ignore those types of things, and like so all that stuff.
I think that's a really important, I talked about it a little bit earlier in our presentation too, but I appreciate you sharing like your actual like experience of it, Eva, with like a family that of origin can be trying their best and still not meet all of the needs that you have. It's not always this like really abrupt like, oh, they kicked me out or they don't like me and I can't talk to them at all. It's often a lot more nuanced and complicated, the types of relationships and lack thereof we have with past family members. Like they're often in flux and sometimes good and sometimes bad. And I think it's important for people to see that if their relationships are also kind of, I don't know, messy and complicated and good sometimes and bad sometimes, that they're not alone. So
yeah, well, I think it's like it's important to like not that it like takes away from how people hurt you and what that looks like. But it's also really important to understand that, like, hey, like, my parents are not perfect. They have trauma that they're still dealing with, generational trauma that they're still dealing with. Like, that is no fault of their own. Oftentimes that's just something that's happened to them. And if you've grown up in a family where mental health wasn't important, they weren't seeking out therapists, you weren't getting medications, like, that's going to translate in how they interact with other people in their life. We've seen it with ourselves, we'll see it with other people. Like, that's important to recognize. It doesn't negate the fact that, hey, you're hurting me and you're disrespecting me, and I'm not going to stand for those types of things regardless of your trauma. But it is important to recognize that, most people are just doing what they can with the tools that they have. And, that's it,
For sure.
I guess I can speak. Like, my experience with my immediate family, for like the most part, is pretty good. But I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where you have to choose your battles. Like, my parents may not understand like what it means to be ace or aromantic, but like they respect it and they support me. But because of how they were raised, like, polyamory is like, it's like a no-go. Like, they are very like vehemently opposed to it, and like I have like the fact that I'm trans, agender, like, on my bios in various places. So like, if people want to know, like, they'll know. But my parents, like they could know if they looked, but I'm not. That is not a conversation that I will have with them, because, like I said before, my parents are pretty religious. Like, my dad's dad, which would be my grandfather, I guess, he was a pastor. So like, there's that whole aspect of being like a big Black family, and having a dad as like a pastor. So like, there are some things that he won't get behind. It's like, I'm not making excuses for him, but like, I can understand. But yeah, and like, my sister, she tries, like, she asks me questions about things so that she can learn. But like, the people that like my sister hangs out with, like, she doesn't have any trans friends. Like, she has other friends under the queer identity, but like, no trans friends. I don't think she has any ace friends or any aromantic friends. So like, it never occurs to her, like, to ask these questions or to have these conversations. So yeah, like, my non-chosen family, like, they did like I guess the fundamentals. Like, they made sure that I was cared for, like, physically, emotionally. But like, like you said before, like, my other needs weren't being met. Like, I didn't have any queer friends, really. I mean, I had a couple of queer friends growing up, but I didn't know any ace people. I didn't know any aromantic people. I knew trans individuals, but I didn't know anyone that was specifically agender until I started hanging out with these people and forging these connections, and then it made me feel valid. Like, there were moments where it was like, wow, like, this is why I feel the way that I feel. And like, I didn't have anyone there to guide me, so like, it was kind of like a eureka moment. Like, so yeah, I mean, I guess that's all I have to say until we get on the the next topic.
The other
but-
side of it, yeah. I relate a lot to a lot of what you all have said. I grew up in rural northern Wisconsin, so conservative, and also, like, I have made my queerness very publicly known. Like you said, Mick, like, if they want to know about it, they could. But I think there's a lot of ignorance by choice. Like, they don't really want to know. And that is sometimes hurtful. And so I've definitely sought out spaces where I'm not just accepted. Like, I think my parents, like, are okay with who I am or whatever. But it's like they like who I am besides my queerness or besides other elements of myself. Whereas I was seeking spaces where, like, those things were valued, kind of thing. So they very much relate to a lot of things y'all were saying. But just for time's sake, I'll have us slide into kind of the other side of the coin, which is, what has your experience with chosen family been? Like, kind of how did you find your chosen family, and why has that been important or impactful on your life since having found those people, if you feel like you already have that in your life now?
I don't mind going first.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it could be kind of obvious by my username, but the internet was where I found my chosen family, and I would be living a very different life, I think, if it wasn't for the people that I was able to find through Twitch and streaming and really just opening up and being who I was online, which was very weird because I was not open with my family or anybody else really, AFK. So for me, it was a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? Surprising, I guess. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, okay, the pandemic just hit. I would love to start making some content, playing some games. I didn't expect to be like, oh, I'm coming out as queer online while I'm still, like, fully masking everywhere about everything with everyone around me AFK. And these people are validating me, and I'm learning more about my identity through this community that's slowly growing. And I didn't even notice it happening until it happened. And I had this chosen family around me that supported me, uplifted me, and validated my identity, which was new for me. Of course, my family loved me. My non-chosen family loved me and supported me in different ways, but it was very much dance around the topic of queerness, dance around the topic of me being autistic. And instead of that, these personality aspects, these parts of me were being uplifted and talked about, and it just it was really, I'm not crying, you're crying, it was really refreshing, and it was really cool to be able to see that. And then I just ran with it. I was like, okay, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna try to provide a space that other people can feel this way too. So that's what chosen family means to me, is being able to uplift, validate, and support the people around you and let them be able to feel exactly who they are and how they are, because a lot of us didn't have that growing up queer, right?
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, at least for me, I won't put words in anyone else's mouth, but it's like, it also wasn't very, like, I didn't very intentionally, I sought out community, but I didn't know that I was going to find my chosen family in the process. And it's very healing in a way that I don't think I initially anticipated. And kind of talked about this earlier, but for me, it's also very, like a double-edged sword, right? Because some of it is so freaking beautiful and lovely, and I feel so uplifted. And then at the same time, sometimes it's really hard when I get into these zones where I'm like, I'm wishing that there was like some grief involved in letting go of the fact that I thought that I was going to get that from those people, and that I had to grow to be okay with getting it from somewhere else, at least in my experience, and being okay with the idea that that's probably never gonna come the way that I want it. It might come in its own unique way as my family kind of works through their own trauma and their own pain. I've noticed like some growth in them. I'm not gonna like sit here and pretend like they haven't worked on things, but it's probably not gonna be exactly what I need, and so a lot of that healing is coming from the chosen family, which is really special. Also, props to all of you for curating spaces where people can find their chosen family, because it's fun and it's amazing, but it's also a lot of work. It's not easy because it involves all those things we were talking about earlier, right? Boundaries and rule setting and negotiation and things like that. So props to all of you for that. But yeah. Anyone else want to share what their experience with chosen family has been?
So
Sorry.
you can go. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Nick.
You go ahead.
So I have what I like to call two bubbles of chosen family. I've got my internet space family. I call my community the music family because I want everyone to feel like, they found their home away from home. And then I actually have an IRL chosen family. I live with a guy that I've lived with since I was 19, one of my partners, and then another friend of mine will be moving in next month, who I really truly consider just like my home away from home family. Like the guy that I've lived with for about 5 years now, and I have really grown together. Like we had our first apartment together. We've figured out how to be standing adults together. We've gone through quite a bit of like formative adulthood years together, and I would probably go to war for this guy if he asked me to. He's like a brother to me. I love this guy. And having him, I think, through some of the tough years with my family, especially specifically because I started hormone therapy at the beginning of the pandemic, and my non-chosen family didn't take that very well. So I think having him as like a secondary support pillar of a family, being like, no, it's great, you're doing great, like you're seeing progress, like you're doing really well for yourself, like don't let them get to you and things like that. I think having an IRL support beam to help with the non-chosen family, because I still live in the same city as my non-chosen family. I think having him, and then also having my internet space away from all of the problems that would come up with an IRL family, because I mean he and I aren't perfect, we still fight, we're brothers, it's what we do, but having both in balance I think has been very helpful to just the overall growth of who I am as a person, who I am mentally, who I am as a queer person, and just figuring out what kind of spaces are the right kind of spaces to be in overall. He's a good moral pillar of, hey, that guy's not great, like you brought somebody over and I wasn't a fan of that person, like let's sit down and talk about why that person wasn't super interesting or super okay for the spaces that we're trying to build here at the house. Like let's talk about the family rules, about we call ourselves a family, we have family meetings about different things that go on and that kind of stuff. Like it's really just a secondary family to me to be here at the house that I live in now, and I think that's been so helpful as adult growth, to have adult friends who are also just close enough that I can count on them to call me out when I'm doing something stupid, or when there's something particular going on that isn't as on par with what we would consider to be our own standards or whatever it is.
Yeah, big part of family is accountability, right?
Yeah.
So love that you have those people in your life who support you and also are ready to call you in when it's like, okay, we need to have a chat. Nick, I think you had started saying something before. If you want to go, that would be awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so like I've always been someone that's, I guess, been kind of really rooted in my identity, but like getting a chosen family like helped me, I guess, temper those identities, so to speak. Like, I knew that I was queer. I knew that I was ace. I knew that I didn't feel I don't know. I didn't feel the way that society wanted me to feel, like the box that they put me in, and like finding my chosen family helped me explore different identities. It helped me, I guess, also better myself. Like I've become a lot happier, realizing like, hey, the reason why I didn't fit in like when I was younger, like with all the gender roles and whatnot, is because I'm agender. Like it makes sense. Like it makes sense, and like having my chosen family like validate me makes me feel like, yeah, like all those years that I thought that I was, like the weirdo or like the outcast, that wasn't the case. I was on a different journey, I guess. And like, well, my non-chosen family, like they hold me accountable on certain issues and whatnot. My chosen family, they hold me accountable on things that my immediate family have no experience on. Like they'll tell me like, hey, coming from this perspective, like the thing that you said could be taken like in a harmful way, um because I have a lot of uh different marginalized identities like in my chosen family, so like I get perspectives from like different walks of life, which I think helps make me more of a well-rounded person. um and then I can offer my experience, uh you know and it might be a perspective that my chosen family might not have heard, so we keep each other accountable. Like we call each other in when we need to, and we uplift each other when we need to. So like I don't know, it's a really nice support system. And it's like I can get what I need from my non-chosen family, and then I can get what I'm not getting from them, like I can get from my chosen family. So like I'm fulfilled in, I guess, all the ways that really matter. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I hope that made sense. I don't know. I kind of rambled on a bit.
No, I think at least it made sense to me. It actually really resonated with me because the way that you described it made me think about it as like an additive, right? Like having chosen family is like a way for people to get additional support and love in ways that they might not in other ways. And it's not always a replacement or something like that. It can be for some people, but sometimes it's just like you're needing additional support in different ways that your family of origin can't really provide for whatever reason. And it actually kind of reminds me of some of the principles in polyamory, of the idea of like one person is not always able to give you everything that you might need, and that can be a beautiful part of polyamory, is that you can seek the support and the different types of love that you need from others in your life, and that's not restricted in any kind of capacity. And so yeah, it definitely made sense to me, and I appreciated your perspective. um, so we only have about 15 minutes left. And so within that, I think I want to ask you all, um, kind of, have you had any challenges in trying to find a chosen family or within your chosen family? Um, and like, how did you navigate that? Um, because I think that's something that we've touched on that's been really important. That is that just because it's a chosen family doesn't mean it's all of a sudden picture perfect and really easy. And I think that that's not something that is talked about enough. So I would love to create some space for that here today. So, yeah, if anyone wants to go first, whoever feels comfortable, that'd be awesome.
I think it's something that a lot of people here would resonate with quite a bit. But as an autistic person who's newly diagnosed, like I just found out recently, but it's made sense to a lot of the problems that I've had with my found family of just boundaries. I have a hard time not accepting other people's boundaries, but giving myself grace on my own. I've let a lot of people who have come into my spaces and come into my found family kind of cross and walk over some of my boundaries before and try to get further in, conversations than I probably should have been letting them and things like that. And it's made finding the people that I think are actually going to be helpful and beneficial to my life and sorting them through the people who are, there for ulterior motives or aren't as respectful of boundaries and things like that a lot harder because to me, I was raised kind of like internet where family boundaries weren't as much of a thing. You knew everything about everybody all the time. I live in a very close knit family. We had, four kids living in one roof with two parents who were all very, very close all the time. And so to me, family boundaries are something that I have a very hard time setting because I didn't grow up learning how to do that. So now when my found family, if there are people that I consider part of that closer found family part of my community start to push in on those boundaries a little bit, I just kind of back up and let them because I'm like, oh, this is just what family does. Family kind of steps over those lines. Family kind of
Mhm.
gets in your spaces more and up inside your business a little bit more. And it wasn't until more recently when I had it happen two, three, four times in a row, and somebody else in my found family looked at me and goes, "This isn't healthy. This isn't this isn't what you're supposed to allow your friends and family to do. You gotta put your foot down way more about this is not what I want to talk about right now. I don't want to be vocalizing about this situation in my life right now. I don't want you that close to this situation. Or I don't need this space interrupted by this kind of conversation right now." And it was really eye-opening to me just how many people I had let cross over into boundaries where I wasn't aware that I wasn't comfortable with them being until I was, kind of called in by other people who were like, "Hey, we know that these people are your friends and we know that you consider them part of your found family, but we can see it on your face that you're uncomfortable when they talk about certain things. You should start bringing that up more often. You should start if they're really your friend and they're really going to be that somebody that close to you, they will understand that that is a boundary to you. Your family should respect your boundaries. You're not letting them respect your boundaries and you're not asking them to respect your boundaries and you need to do that." And so that's been something that I've spent the greater part of this new 2023 trying to teach myself is boundary control.
I think it's really hard to acknowledge when a lot of your life, not your life, but like generally, I've just let people walk all over me because that was the expectation in the
Yeah.
family that you were raised in, right? And for me, for the past 2, 3 years, I make a vision board every year for like career wise stuff I want to do. I've literally put I don't care if this is cheesy, a picture of a backbone on my on my vision board because I so easily let people just, "Oh, okay, okay, I'll back down, right?" This is not an easy topic, but I just want to say that yeah, I do relate to that and that I understand that it's really hard to like come out of that and be like, "No, I deserve better. I deserve these people respecting my boundaries. If they care about me, they would do that." Um I have it's been a learning process. I've had to remove people from my chosen family for the lack of respect for my boundaries, and
Mhm.
it always sucks. The couple
It
times I've
hurts
had
a
to
lot
do
more
it.
than you think it will. You don't think it's
Yeah.
gonna hurt, and then you go through the motions and you're like, "No, for my sake and my safety, I need to
Yeah.
remove this person." And then it hits you in the middle of the night one night. I don't have this person to reach out to anymore
Yeah,
because
you miss them.
you miss them a lot and you think about
Mhm.
it and you're like, "Wow, I really did that for myself and I'm proud of myself for doing that, but holy crap,
Yeah.
it still sucks."
Yeah, you're worth it, but it's a really hard process to go through.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's called a cycle for a reason, right? Like we talked a little bit about breaking a cycle earlier, but like
Mhm.
if that's the
Mhm.
only version of family that you've ever seen, giving yourself some grace and kindness and that you might have repeated some of those things that you watched and thought family was supposed to be, that unlearning process takes time and it's not easy and it takes practice and you haven't had that practice because your family of origin taught you like this is how families are and you have to like unlearn, oh wait, that's actually not how it's supposed to be, and that's actually harmful and like, you know, being kind to yourself as you're figuring that out, I think is really important because it's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that made me think about as someone who is typically identifies as a people pleaser, and how I tend, growing up, I would tend to allow people closest to me to speak for me because I had a hard time saying things that might come off as strong or pushy or problematic. And I say that loosely because it's not really that I'm being problematic. I'm just speaking up for myself and setting boundaries and doing all these things, right? And I think up until very recently, well, not recently, I'd say about a year ago, I had a lot of things going on and put myself back through therapy to focus more on my boundaries and stuff because I was still, I was having some moments where I was being triggered and it was getting harder and harder to continue to set boundaries in a way that was appropriate. So I got back into that and I started realizing that I love my friends, and I have wonderful found family. Um, but their personalities are very different than mine in the sense where I'm like not nearly as outspoken as I could be sometimes, and I'm quieter. And then a lot of my found family friends are loud and outspoken, and they always, and that comes from a sense of needing that in my life because I couldn't provide it for myself, right? So I have friends who could be outspoken and could do these things, but slowly realizing that I was creating this unfair expectation for them to do so for me when I could do it myself. And that's something that I've had to grapple with. And none of my friends are ever like, hey, like we find ourselves speaking for you all the time, and that's not cool type of scenario. But I recognize within myself that I was using that as a crutch, so to speak. And it created like a weird uh tension in my head where I felt like I was being unfair to them by expecting them to speak up for me. And I can even think of a moment where I was with a friend at a bar before I moved to the Midwest, and someone was like in our space, and I kind of been like quietly being like, "Hey, like I don't really I don't really like this. Like, we're just trying to hang out. Like, these are one of the last few days I'm going to get to spend with this person that I feel so close to. And like, I really just would like it to just be us. Could you like go somewhere else?" But I was being like very vague and calm and like passive about it. And then I could feel my friend about to like, like the leash was about to be unlocked and she was gonna like start barking at people, like that was like the thing that was gonna happen, right? And the moment I realized that that's what was gonna happen, like I felt her energy ramping up. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should do that. And then I did, and it was like the most incredible thing. And she even looked at me like, dude, like what are you doing? Like, I've never seen that from you before. And I was like, look, I've been through therapy now. I'm different person. Okay. But like, no, but I think in like, but she was like really, that was like an experience for both of us. And she was like, I didn't want to do that for you. And you decided to do it instead. And that was like a really healthy moment for us, and like, cause she didn't want to feel like she was speaking for me when I could speak for myself, right? And so like and those are things that like you have to navigate when you're like in this found family scenario because you know uh my family specifically felt comfortable speaking for me and didn't see the need for me to speak for myself, right? And so but that's different, found family, as much as they can be there to help you with that process and to make you feel more comfortable speaking up, like that is not a requirement for them to do for you always, and nor should you expect that from them, in my opinion. So that's something that like is hard, and you fall back on that sometimes, and and it's just like a thing that you have to recognize within yourself and kind of navigate that and like have understandings with each other. Like sometimes I may need your help saying certain things, but you know, it's not always. And yeah.
I love how, like, through that narrative, you kind of like acknowledge what I think is like a really important thing is that in a healthy family dynamic involves like self-reflection, right? Like, how are you spending the time reflecting on how you're interacting and how you might be perpetuating harm even unintentionally within the space? And like anemic kind of said it in chat as you were talking, but like someone doesn't have to say something for you to recognize that you've been doing something harmful is a good sign that you're doing enough of that, like self-reflecting, making sure like am I still being the person that I want to be, because it's easy to fall down a rabbit hole of things that you've learned from other people and that they don't really resonate with you, but you're just repeating habits that you've seen. So
Yeah,
I think
and
that's
that's the
good.
great thing about found family is that they create that comfortability where you can have the space to reflect on
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Like that's so important. And like there's so many times like with like people who are your blood where you don't feel comfortable self-reflecting because they're also not doing the self-reflection. So like it becomes like a rigmarole where like you're just going around in circles with each other. And like that's something that found family can create is like this idea that we can self-reflect with or without each other, and that's
Mm-hmm.
a wonderful thing. So
I remember when I went to therapy and I told my therapist, I was like, this was like the last year of college, and I was like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to convince my family that we need to go to family therapy and we're going to fix this, right? Like I was on a fix it train. And my therapist was like, I don't think that was a good idea. And I was so surprised and confused. I was like, I just told you that I want to go to therapy. Why are you, as a therapist, telling me that that's a bad idea? And she was like, if your family has zero self interest in going to therapy, zero self interest in self growth and self reflection and changing and seeing how they might have caused harm, then if you can even get them to go, they're probably just going to repeat cycles of harm that you've experienced with them because they haven't actually made that choice for themselves. And so, like, finding a found family where self reflection and growth and, all of those types of things are values that those people have, it's just like a whole nother experience where you get to have like the safety of like making mistakes, learning from the mistakes, growing together, self reflecting. That, like, if your family's uninterested in those types of things and are really stuck in their ways, aren't happening with like family of origin. So I relate to that a lot as well. I never really thought about it, but I I do relate a lot. Anyone else have any thoughts that they want to share as we're wrapping up for today? Oh yes, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Exactly. Awesome. I know we didn't get to all the questions, but I loved hearing the stories that you all had to share regardless. Um, I always just like to have a lot of questions prepared in case we have time, but I know we get busy and we get on tangents, especially with how many of us are neurodivergent lads ourselves. So I love it. I love a good tangent. And I appreciate you all. I know that topics around family aren't always the easiest to speak up about. Um, and so I appreciate you all like taking the time today to be open about those things. And I don't know how many of you had chat open, but a lot of people were saying the things that you all were saying were really resonating with them, and that they were glad that they weren't um, alone. So I hope you walk away from the conversation feeling like you did something helpful for someone else today, and hopefully that feels good, because I appreciate you all being here and sharing your time with us, for free and things. Um, if we can get a couple more shout outs for these lovely humans in chat, if you enjoyed what you saw today, definitely make sure to go show them some love, because I can firmly say that each and every one of them have really wonderful conversations like these in their own spaces when the time is right and when it's appropriate. And yeah, thank you everybody. I hope
Thank
you
you,
all
B,
have a
for
good rest of
having
your
us.
day. You're welcome.
Thanks
Talk
for
to you all
having us.
soon.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye everybody. All right, give me 1 second to hop out of our little call here. And then I am going to. Oh no, I have made a mistake. Please hold.
It was nice getting to meet all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Thank
Hold on a second, chat. Sorry, y'all. So sorry. um. Okay, y'all. Sorry, my camera's being poo poo, so I don't think I'm gonna be able to fix that. So I'm just gonna chat with you all from this screen, because not the gender unlocked, because all we're doing is finding someone to raid. So just give me a second to find someone to raid. I apologize for this little end of crusty end of stream here that but I had a great time with you all today. Thank you for sharing your experiences in chat as well and hanging out with us today. You know, the stream is you know, the guests, but it's also you all being here, which is super super important to me. Okay, it doesn't look like any of our team members are online, so let me just go to my regular Twitch and see if there's anyone. Any wonderful queer humans we could raid? Oh yeah, I see a good one. Yes, a little bit crusty. It's okay. It's okay. All right, if one of the mods, wait, I think I can do it. Maybe. I promise I'm a professional streamer. I swear I know what I'm doing. I'm kidding. Anyways, here we go. Bada bing, bada boom. That should start our raid. The mods have put the raid command in chat, so make sure you grab that before we head out. And if we could get a shout out for Chi Chi as well, in case the raid doesn't take us, because sometimes it doesn't like to take everybody. So just in case it doesn't, you can follow the link as well. But yeah, we're gonna go raid another wonderful queer streamer named Chi Chi or Soy Milk, who uses they them pronouns and is also pushing for partner and is going to be applying again in like 2 days, so we can hopefully support them on that journey. Yeah, and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye friends. Bye bye bye.